Let's get started. So, today we will discuss about excretory products and their elimination. If we try to look into and see what is happening in the human body, we have two distinct kind of processes going simultaneously in the body. One we are calling anabolism. This anabolism is a constructive process where the small molecules are getting assembled to form a bigger molecule. Basically, these are synthesis process. Something is getting built up, something which are getting manufactured, something which are useful for the body, useful for the digestive aspect, useful for the normal physiological aspect of the body are getting manufactured. So, these are called as anabolism. And then there is another process simultaneously going on which is called catabolism. Catabolism, which is nothing but a destructive process. So, the harmful products are getting produced by the actual disruption or actual breakdown of the bigger component. So, anabolism is a constructive process and catabolism is a destructive process, and this catabolism, in this catabolism process, what we are getting is the production of harmful elements in the body, and some of the harmful element we will try to discuss here in this topic. So, those excretory products are coming because of this catabolic processes, and in biology if you combine this anabolism and catabolism you call it metabolism. So, this metabolism is another very important physiological consequences in the human body in order to make homeostasis. Homeo means constant environment inside the body. We can't do abrupt changes. For example, if you are feeling very hot during the summer weather, what body is trying to do is to secrete the sweat, and this sweat, so this is just an example, sweat is secreted out from the body during the heat condition. Now, the whole purpose of this sweat coming out from the body is to cool the body down. So, this is a very good osmoregulatory aspect of the body in order to cool down the whole physiological aspect, because body is showing alteration during the heat condition. So, this is one such example. We will discuss this whole process in context of actual excretory aspect. Now, this metabolism is very important, and every person, every human individual requires a constant amount of energy, constant amount of threshold energy every day, and that depends upon the basal metabolic rate of a human individual, and in short sometimes we called it BMR, basal metabolic rate. If the person's basal metabolic rate is very high, that means the person is efficient. If the basal metabolic rate is down, that means a person is little bit sluggish. So, BMR is very important, which is directly linked to this metabolism, which is indirectly linked to these two processes, anabolism and catabolism. Now, probably we will try to discuss in this chapter mostly about these catabolic processes, because these are creating some toxic element which are not at all required by the body, and the body wants to throw it out. So, let us start the actual topic. Now, if we see that what is happening during the normal process, so suppose we have food, these food particles or food ingredients, we are getting it inside the body by a process called ingestion. So, ingestion is nothing but taking the food particle or food ingredients inside the body through this mouth. which is a part of our buccal cavity. So, these food particles are entering inside the body, it is getting inside the stomach, and then it is getting kind of metabolized, and the ingredients and the other aspects are getting absorbed from the small intestine, and then we are getting energy. Now, in this whole process, what is happening? The undigested food particles are getting out. So, there are some undigested material which are not required by the body, which is above the threshold, and these are not actually the wanted kind of material for the body. So, these are unwanted. So, these are just undigested food particles, and this needs to be eliminated from the body system. Similarly, in addition to food, what we are taking is water also. Now, water is also an ingredient which is very important for our body. Look, why water is important? You just imagine a situation when the body gets dehydrated. Once the body gets dehydrated, what you are getting during the diarrhea or extreme water loss condition from the body during the burning and all, the water loss is huge in the body, and just imagine what are the kind of consequences a person is getting if you don't have water. So, water is very important ingredient, but above a threshold water is also not required, right. So, water is needed in actual concentration. If you have a stipulated amount of water intake in the body, you are fine. Excess water is again not required, and that is to be thrown out in the form of urine, right. So, these are the two important aspects of the digestive system which we are encountering every day. Whatever food we are taking, undigested food is getting out in the form of feces, and then water which are not at all utilized by the body is getting out in the form of urine. We will see this whole aspect in detail, but I just wanted to give you guys a basic understanding of this excretory aspect, why these are produced and how it is getting eliminated. So, all right, we have now little bit understanding of this excretory and how the body is responding. Let us try to recall our last chapter number 17, which is breathing and exchange of gases, which was nothing but we discussed all about O2 and CO2. So, what is happening in the atmosphere? We are getting all different kind of ingredient in the form of those oxygen, carbon dioxide, nitrogen and all. Some of them are utilized by the body, and the one which is not required is getting excreted out. And what we learned in this whole chapter, that CO2 is the unwanted one, and we are excreting it out in the form of exhalation. So, CO2 is going out from the body system because accumulation of CO2 is toxic to the body. So, the CO2 needs to be out from the body by certain mechanism, and one such mechanism is exhalation. So, we will discuss this again in detail, but let us try to focus here that how this excretory products is important. Here what is happening, we will try to imagine a situation and we will try to focus our human body in order to understand this topic in a proper way. Now, if we think about what are the normal openings in the body, because these are the openings which are going to excrete out, which are going to force out the stuff which are not wanted by our body. Okay. Now, if we see the skull region, the head region, what is the first opening we are getting? Eye. So, the first opening which is there is eye. Now, eye, when you have certain emotions, when you have certain kind of sorrow or some kind of emotions and all, what you are getting is crying, and this crying leads to production of tears. So, tears, unwanted tears are coming out from the area which is called eyeball. Now, if we go and see the detail of this structure, which is not a part of this whole chapter, but the students whosoever is learning biology needs to understand this one, that tears are produced by a very specific gland, and that gland is called lacrimal. Lacrimal gland is the producer of tears, and this lacrimal gland and lacrimal ducts are there in the eye orbit, eyeball socket, but we have a duct called lacrimal duct, and from this duct the tears are coming out through your eyes. Now, there is a very fascinating aspect about this whole process. When a person is crying, something is coming out from the nostril also, because crying is not associated always with tears, but you are getting a dropping from the nostril also. That dropping is nothing but the tears only. How it is possible? There is a common duct which is coming both in the nostril and the lacrimal duct. So, it is called nasolacrimal duct, and because of that reason, when the tears are coming out, some of the tears are coming from eyes and some of the tears are coming out from nostril. So, this is one opening, and this is just a small example that we have certain emotions and water is coming out. Of course, this water is mixed with various kind of salts and all. The next opening is nose. So, this is another opening which is quite visible from outside naked eyes, that you have nose as an opening, and the classical example which we have gone through is CO2. The unwanted CO2 which is not at all absorbed is coming out also from nostril. When you have a common cold, when you have nasal sneezing and cough and all kind of thing, you always have a running nose, and that running nose is nothing but some of the secretion which are produced in the nasal cavity or inside this respiratory aspect or respiratory system, which are nullifying the effect, or because of this whole inflammatory process, you are getting production of certain secretory mucus kind of secretions which are coming out. The excess amount, which is not at all required by the body, is coming out through this nostril. So, nose is also an area which is kind of giving an exit point to the stuff which are not required by our human body. Now, the second, the third one is quite obvious. You have your mouth, which is another opening, and now very simple, and if a layman asks that what kind of stuff is coming out from the mouth, if you take an example of a baby, the one thing which is coming in the mind directly, that baby saliva coming out from the baby mouth is quite common. So, saliva. Now, this saliva is nothing but a mixture of lot of enzyme, and one such enzyme is called amylase. So, saliva contains amylase, and this amylase is basically an enzyme that digests carbohydrates. So, carbohydrate digestion is required in the buccal cavity, because that enzyme is very much important or very much required by the human body in order to degrade the carbohydrate. So, this saliva is also very important, but excess saliva, sometimes when you are getting some food particles which you really like, that time you salivate a lot. The mouth watering condition is nothing but secretion of excess saliva, and this saliva we will see later on. This is a very important ingredient that is related to the nitrogen excretion also. So, saliva is related to certain kind of excretory aspect also. So, these are the three openings. Now, the fourth opening is also available here, and that is our ear. So, let us delete these three, and we will try to focus on the fourth one, and the fourth one is ear. Now, in ear you have, let us draw a rough schematic kind of a diagram. Suppose this is an ear. The outer of this ear is what you call pinna, This pinna is nothing but this cartilaginous bone like structure which is hanging from hanging outside. So, but we are not concerned about that one. We are concerned about this area. This is nothing but the canal. We called it ear canal. So, this is nothing but the ear canal. Sometimes it is called as auditory meatus. In biology it is called auditory meatus, but we are not going to go and look into the complex nomenclature. We will simply say ear canal. Now, what is happening? You have very small kind of hair like a structure throughout this canal. So, you have lot of hairs here in this canal, and in the base of that hair follicle. So, suppose these hair follicles are here, these are very sensitive area. So, there is a small glands which are situated in the base of these hair follicles, and these glands are called as sebaceous gland. Sebaceous glands, and this sebaceous gland are the secretor of sebum. This sebum in layman language it is called wax. So, sebaceous, I think this is sebaceous. So, sebaceous gland is nothing but the secretor of sebum. So, now this sebum is coming in this auditory meatus. Basically what is happening here, this wax which we are otherwise called as sebum is secreted in this particular area, and which is trapping the dust particle in order to prevent the damage of the eardrum. So, there is a very sensitive part which is called eardrum there in at the end of this the whole ear canal, which is very sensitive. So, nobody can touch this one. In avoid to do that kind of mechanism, the body is created this waxy environment so as to trap the dust particles, so as to trap in order to make this particular area hygienic. Of course, this is very sensitive part. So, one has to clean, and every time once you will clean, you are getting some kind of a small wax kind of crumbles, and which is nothing but the secretion of this sebaceous gland. So, this is the fourth opening situated in the top. Now, we have this all opening discussed in the head area. We will now move on to the next aspect. Our whole body, the whole skin area, the whole leg area, whole body is having small pores like structure. So, suppose this is a body surface and this small kind of pores are there. So, the hair follicle. So, suppose we are talking about the arm area. So, we have small hairs in the arm. In the bottom hair follicles, we are again having something called sweat gland. Sweat glands. The next one is anus, which is giving excretion or giving a passage to the undigested food particle in the form of stool or in the form of feces, biologically what we call. So, anus is another opening that is giving excretion or kind of passage to the undigested food particles from rectum. Now, the other opening is what we will discuss in great detail in this chapter, and that is our urinary system. Urinary system. So, this urinary system we will discuss this one again in our reproductive system to certain extent. So, the opening is common for both urinary system as well as reproductive system. So, we are calling reproductive system as genital system and urinary system as such urinary system. But in the passage, the last opening where the urinary system and the genital system are merging is called urogenital system. Urogenital opening, and this urogenital opening is giving basically passage to urine. So, in nutshell, these are some of the openings available in the human system. Since we need to understand this topic in great detail. So, that is what we started here. Now, if you go and check the slide again, so these are some of the excretory products secreted out from the human body, and not in human body, also in vertebrate, invertebrates and other living individuals. So, these excretory products are comprises of ammonia, urea, uric acid, CO2, water and certain ions, sodium, potassium, chloride, phosphate, sulfate, etc. So, these are some of the excretory products which are produced inside the human body by various processes going on in every day-to-day activities. So, if we start looking into the actual component of this excretory products, three are most important. So, we will discuss mostly about ammonia, urea and uric acid. So, uric acid, urea and ammonia are the three very important excretory product in the human body or other vertebrate or invertebrates which are produced by the body as a toxic ingredient. These are not required in huge quantity in the body. So, they are getting excreted out by a process of excretion, and there are various organs for the excretion available right from the very lower invertebrates to the higher vertebrates like human beings. We have a very specialized structure called kidney, and we will discuss kidney in detail. But let us try to focus here and understand the basic mechanism behind these three important toxic material: ammonia, urea and uric acid. If we see the solubility aspect of these three ingredients, ammonia requires a huge amount of water in order to excrete out. So, if a person is having, or if an individual, if a living entity is having huge water reservoir or huge water content in the atmosphere or in the area where they are surviving, basically they are excreting ammonia. So, ammonia is excreted by those living entities which are having higher percentage of water around them. So, if we go in the slide, next slide, what we are seeing here is there are three kind of excretory aspect available. One is ammonotelic, ureotelic and uricotelic, which is nothing but related to the excretion of ammonia or urea or uric acid. So, the organism which can secrete ammonia is called ammonotelic. The one which can excrete urea is called ureotelic, and the one which can excrete uric acid is called uricotelic. Now, what we discuss is the water affinity about this three individual toxic material. So, they require huge amount of water. This is kind of a moderate water. So, if the body is having moderate water condition, they are ureotelic like human beings. If we try to consider the smaller vertebrates, some of the best examples are birds. These birds are having very less amount of water in their body. Reptiles, they are having very less amount of water, or they are kind of deprived of the water availability or they are living in an atmosphere which is not that aquatic in nature. So, in that case, the droppings, if one can look into their the one which is dropping is coming out is nothing but a kind of a solid droplets, and these droplets are nothing but the uric acid crystals which are coming out as an excretory product in birds and reptiles. So, birds, reptiles and certain other animals also, we are having uric acid as an excretory product, and that is why we are calling it uricotelic. So, we will again go back to the slide and see that we have three distinct kind of the excretory aspect, ammonotelic, ureotelic and uricotelic. And if you see the example, these are some of the best example of ammonotelic. So we have bony fishes, we have aquatic amphibians, we have insect. Now these species, aquatic amphibians and aquatic insect, which are living in water, are having huge amount of water around them. So that's why somehow their body system is evolved in such a way that they are ammonotelic in nature. While mammals, terrestrial amphibians means amphibians, they can adapt both in land as well as the water. So terrestrial amphibians, we have this urea as an ingredient for excretory system, and then we have marine fishes. Now marine fishes is why we are discussing marine fishes here and take an example, because marine fishes are living in a very salty environment. So the actual fresh water requirement or actual fresh water content in their surroundings are very less, and because of that reason the body system is evolved in such a way that these marine fishes are excreting out urea. While if we go back in the slide and check once again, the uricotelic examples are birds, as what we discussed, reptiles and insect, not the aquatic insect, but the normal insects and the land snails. So these are some of the species. Land snails are the one which are surviving or living in the land condition. So these are all terrestrial examples which can preserve the water. They do not want to leave the water in a different way. So they are preserving, and because of this preservation the body is adapted in such a way that the excretory system is evolved to excrete out ammonia, excrete out urea and excrete out uric acid, and accordingly the animals are called as ammonotelic, ureotelic and uricotelic based on the excretory aspect. So let us try to discuss the actual evolution aspect of the whole animal system. We will try to understand from the basic lower invertebrates, and then we will try to see the gradual evolution happened. So we will now discuss the lower invertebrates and try to see how the excretory system got evolved in these smaller animals. So now we will discuss about taking an example of certain invertebrates. So if we start looking the evolution of these animals, the excretory system started with a tube. So there are a lot of small duct or tube like structure. So suppose if this is the typical body surface area of say for example a protozoa or any lower invertebrate, their excretory system, of course there is no as such advanced digestive system, so there is no way they can produce some very toxic material now. But generally the water osmoregulation and water balance inside the body are controlled by a fine duct like structure. So basically these are the ductal appearance. So there will be a one opening outside and there will be one opening inside. So something is getting kind of directed from inner side to outer side. So these are kind of maintenance of an osmoregulation in this lower invertebrates. So this is a starting point in evolutionary aspect, and gradually what happened, these small tubes are getting directed and evolved in such a way that instead of opening inside the body system, they started getting open into some normal collecting duct. So say for example, these are a small duct which are kind of collecting all this waste material, and then after getting it collected, they are draining out from the body cavity. Now here, since we are trying to understand the whole excretory system in evolutionary terminology, this started with a tube-like structure, and this tube-like structure is called nephridia. So these are specific terminology which are used in order to depict any excretory organ tube-like structure. Since we are talking about ancient, very old, we will add a prefix called archae. Archae is anything which is primitive in nature. So archaeonephridia are basically these older duct-like structure available in these kind of species where the excretory product are directly going from inner to outer side by specific openings. Later on, this kind of ductal system get evolved where the whole passages are coming into this ductal kind of a structure, and then this was another first advancement from archaeonephridia. So these are called as protonephridia. So this protonephridia is nothing but the evolved form of the older primitive small duct-like structure. Now you have a ductal system, and a very nice example of this ductal system is we are getting in Annelida. Annelida is a phylum where we are discussing about the earthworm and all. So since this species, they are very specifically demarcating their body structure in the form of segment. So if you start drawing a earthworm, their body is like in segment, and each segment is basically having a protonephridia. So basically these protonephridia is collecting the waste material, and then basically these are having this ductal appearance. So what is happening? So these are having segment, and each segment is having two lateral collecting duct area, which is converging in the lateral side to drain all the excretory material with a common point. So somehow these are getting involved, and at certain point you have an external opening that is discarding the material, and it varies. This is not a fundamental rule, but this is how things are evolved. Small duct, ducting tube, and then merging into a nice exterior opening where everything is draining out. So here we have taken an example of protonephridia, which is coming from a very specialized phylum Annelida, because this is studied in great detail in this earthworms. Now there is a very nice species to understand this excretory system, and that is called Planaria. Planaria is a species coming from flatworm, and that flatworm is what we know as phylum Platyhelminthes. So Platyhelminthes is a phylum, and the species name is Planaria. The Planaria body, since we discussed why they are calling it flatworm, because the body cavity is not there, so everything is squeezed. You just consider like a filled balloons, for example, they have air and all. So basically if you squeeze it down, there is nothing left out. So the body cavity is absent, that's why they are called as flatworm. So this flatworm, the example Planaria, is nicely studied for this protonephridial kind of excretory system. Now what is there in these species are like they are having this flat like structure. So they are roughly a flat organism, and lateral is something which is towards the periphery. So lateral is this, lateral is this. So laterally they have a very nice channel distributed throughout their body length. So these channels are basically having a very specialized kind of cell, very specialized kind of cell, and this cell are sometimes called as Phlegm Cells. So Phlegm Cells are kind of a protonephridial system which are very specialized structure for this planarial worm in order to excrete the materials. So if you start looking, so this is the ductal system, and these are distributed throughout, so everything is here also the same thing. So this worm is kind of, so if we start looking into this kind of phlegm cell, and if we start seeing what are the content in the phlegm cell, so basically they have a body like structure, and then they have cilia, and then they have an exterior opening outside, and they are basically, these are collecting duct. So this body, so this is what we are we are just zooming it out. So these are cilia. So cilia, we know that these are hairy like a structure. So basically things are coming from the body cavity and these are drained, and basically these drained, or these are coming from this collecting duct also, and there is an opening which is kind of attaching to the outside area, and this opening is giving kind of excretion to this material. So this is very specialized structure called phlegm cell in platyhelminthes. Now this is in gross. These are all gross pictures that we are trying to discuss here. Now we will see a little advanced form of excretory system, and that advanced form is coming from another phylum which is Arthropoda. Arthropoda. Now this Arthropoda, as we know that these are also segmented body cavity. So of course we have a protonephridial kind of system, but in gradual time evolution this protonephridial system is getting disappeared, and because of this disappearance the new organ system started. One we just now saw, phlegm cell. The another one is in the cockroach. We know the cockroach is a representative organism from this Arthropoda phylum. They have a very specific organ in their body taking part in excretory process, and that is called Malpighian body. Malpighian body. So this Malpighian body is nothing but an excretory organ in case of cockroaches. So, and of course this phylum Arthropoda is not a very small phylum, it is a very big phylum and a lot of species are there. So this is one modification. We have Malpighian body in cockroach taking part in excretory process. There is another species we know is prawn. Prawn is a representative of class Crustacea. So prawn is crustaceans. So this is nothing but coming from a class called Crustacea, but the phylum is Arthropoda. Now these prawn are having antenna. So they have a very specialized antenna like structure where they can sense the outside environment. Just in the base of antenna, so suppose you have, can't draw it to scale, but suppose this is kind of a prawn. They have this leg and all. So there is a specific antenna. Just in the base of antenna, you have this gland called antennal gland. Antennal gland. So this prawn is very specifically using this antennal gland to excrete out the waste material collected from our body cavity. So we are just looking into the advancement. See how these things are getting advanced. Earlier it was like a small tube which is getting in a tubular form like in protonephridia. Then we started with the phlegm cell, then Malpighian body, antennal gland, and then in case of another species, so I will just delete this part. So we have another species, spiders. Spiders are organisms from class Arachnida. Arachnida. So these arachnida or arachnids comprises of a spider and other various organisms. Ticks are there, other very minute insects are there. So these species are having a very specialized structure in their limb, in the base of their limb. They have a very specialized structure called coxal gland. Coxal gland. So this coxal gland is a very specialized excretory structure located in the base of the limb in this species, particularly in the class Arachnida. There are certain exceptions, but I am just giving an example that coxal gland is another modification of the excretory organ in case of spiders, which is located in the base of the limb region. And also here we have gone through antenna gland. Sometimes it is also called as green gland. Green gland. Green gland. So antennal gland is also called as sometimes green gland, and then you have a coxal gland, which is kind of excretory organ in arthropoda. So, we are now looking that there is a great advancement of excretory system in this arthropodan species. Of course, it is started with arthworm where we have a segmented body, and the protonephridial system is getting advanced and getting more merged and evolved after Phlegm Cell. So, and then we have a specialized organ that is taking part in this whole process. Slowly advancement happened, and now these all organs are completely dedicated for excretory system, and in our case human being, we have a very specialized structure, very specialized organ, we call it kidney. In our next class we will discuss about kidney, the human excretory system.